this recipe are very simple. We just need cream cheese, chipped beef, and green onions. The equipment that we'll need to make today's recipe includes, of course, the food processor, because we're going to learn how to use that and go over it piece by piece. And then additionally, we'll need a cutting board, a paring knife, a regular rubber scraper, and a specialty scraper for the food processor that's a hard plastic. First, we're going to break down the parts of the food processor. So in order to open it, we have to push the lid slightly to the left. All right, so we have the lid, which actually is 3 separate pieces. We have the bowl cover. We have the food tube. And then inside of that is the food pusher. So if we were actually feeding an ingredient in, we could push behind it safely without involving any appendages. So then additionally, we have the bowl and the blade, and of course those all go on the base. Also, to remove the bowl, we go slightly to the left. When you get ready to put it back together, you should be able to remember where the handle goes, because there's this cutout that you have to match it up to. So the handle goes in the front by the buttons. If you put it on backwards with the handle in the back, it will not run. So that's part of the safety features. And it will also not run without the lid on and locked in place. So the steps to making our chipped beef dip are rather simple. We're going to start with our cream cheese, and we're going to place that in our food processor. Make sure that we use the rubber scraper to clean the wrapper so that it all gets in there. And then we're going to put the lid on, start it off slightly to the right, bring it to the center. And the food processor has a few different buttons. So it has on, pulse, and dough. We'll use on and pulse today. On stays on. And pulse is on only when you hold the button in. So they both can be very useful. So we just want to fluff this up a little bit. You can see it moving around in the bowl of the food processor. By doing this, it's going to make it easier to mix in the other ingredients without over chopping them. So our next ingredient is our green onions. And it's important to remember that a lot of the flavor in the green onion comes in the white part of the onion. So we want to just trim that off very close to the hairy root. That's the part we want to get rid of. And then we're going to take off this outer layer of the onion, and we'll discard that. And then we're going to use our paring knife to just cut these into a few smaller pieces so that it doesn't have to spend too much time in the food processor, because we don't want to turn the cream cheese green from the green onion. We will go up the onion a little bit, and we'll put some of that in to get a little bit of color, but we want that color to come in the way of flecks. So we'll drop that all over the food processor, put the lid back on, and this time we're going to pulse so we get a little more control over how the food processor works. So we have that chopped up just a little bit. Now we'll push the top to the left so we can open it. And now we're going to cut up our chipped beef. And we're going to cut that into some smaller squares. Again, just so it spends a minimal amount of time in the food processor. And we have a nice looking dip instead of a bowl of pink mushy goo. So we're just going to cut kind of a tic-tac-toe board of sorts, but with 16 squares instead of 9. One more line. And then we'll take all of that beef and put it into the food processor. And again, we're going to use the pulse feature so that we get some good control over how long it processes. So you can see the meat's getting chopped up, but I still have some cream cheese on the side, so I'm going to take that hard plastic scraper designed for the food processor because the blade won't destroy it. This will let everything move around a little bit better. So you can see we've gotten to the point that everything is nicely chopped up. We could mix it a little bit before we put it in the serving dish, but otherwise our chipped beef dip is ready to go. When you finish with your dip, put it in a nice looking dish to serve with your favorite crackers. And remember, when you're cleaning up the food processor, always wipe the base clean after you've finished using it each time. And if you are washing the pieces by hand, make sure that you never put the blade into the dishwater unless you are actually the person washing it, and make sure you never let go of it. It is very sharp. You need to be very careful, and you may want to consider using a dish brush to clean it instead of a regular dish rag, just to make sure that you keep your fingers away from it and avoid getting cut. So here's our chipped beef dip ready to serve with an assortment of crackers.